Hello, this is the Arbor and Light. I'm Mary. I give a conservative perspective about the world around me. All right, so feedback is greatly important. Feel free to reach out to me either through email, Substack, and the other sources that I will have provided for you for other links and socials. Look under that section. So, and also the Shopify. I have a Shopify, and that link will be provided too. All right, so some of the audio platforms that I'm on Spreaker. I'm on Spotify, Deezer, Amazon Music, iHeartRadio, Pandora, just to name a few. All right, so this is the continuation of art and culture. So for this segment, this episode is centering around modernism. So I'm going to break everything down as a whole, concise whole on this week, and then next week I'll get into particular artists that I think really encompass the essence of modern art and give my thoughts about everything too. All right, here we go. All right, so modern art facts. So modern art which spans from 1860s to the 1860s to about 1970, is characterized by a spirit of experimentation and a rejection of traditional techniques and styles. Now, this period saw artists like Vincent van Gogh, Paul Cézanne, Paul Gaunt, Georges Seurat, and Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, who were crucial in the development of modern art. Modern artists explored new ways of seeing and working with materials, often moving away from traditional perspectives and focusing on abstraction. One of the earliest movements, that is, with the modern arts was Impressionism, as I was saying on Monday. Now, modern art also includes movements like Cubism, pioneered by Pablo Picasso and George Barak, which emphasizes fragments, objects, and flat two-dimensional surfaces, rejecting traditional techniques of perspective and modeling. Another significant movement was Fauvism, which entitled by Henri Matisse and others, which featured wild, multicolored, expressive landscapes and figure paintings. Modern sculptures like painting saw significant innovations with artists like Auguste Rodin exploring new forms and materials. So modern urban art often depicted the dynamic aspects of the ins and outs of city life, as seen in works like Broadway Boogie Woogie by Piet Mondrian and Night Walks by Edward Hopper. So modern art paved the way for contemporary art, which emerged in the 1950s and is characterized by its diversity and plurality, addressing political, social, and cultural issues through various media. Okay, so I think Edward Hopper is a very good example that encompasses the aspects of modern art. So modern art is essentially the aspects of breaking away from traditionalism. Well, classic examples of how shape and form looks. Now, with Edward Hopper, most of his examples or his subjects were about the inner city and either that in urban dwellings and restaurants or so forth, particularly with a restaurant, and I'll get to that, or you go into the aspects of the sea life. Hold on just a minute. And the overall unified theme in here is that you're talking about isolation for the most part. So, okay, let's center around the sea portraits and then get back to urban portraits. What do they have in common? Like I said, isolation. So when you think about it in the essence of living on the sea or going away, either if you live on the sea, you have a house on the sea, or you are a tradesman or, fisherman or something, make your trade by the sea or so forth, it can, for the essence of it, can be, isolating, very lonely. And so he depicted that sort of mentality really well. And then what to do with that and how to occupy your time. And the essence of time and space is really prevalent in his works. So how people are positioned in the atmosphere of their homes, where, most of the time there's a window open and you get a view looking out, or somebody's looking out of the window. And in the essence of what does that represent in symbolism of the thoughts of life and yourself and everything else with that. Okay, so when we break down everything, when he does the most famous and some might say infamous painting that he has, Night Hawkers or so forth. So these people sitting in a cafe and just going about their time, and you can see the solitude in their faces. Even though they're in a crowd of people, they're still alone. And that says a lot of aspects in the mentality of living in the city here. So even though you're surrounded by people, are you actually, in good company? Are you actually from the essence of, are you actually content? Are you actually, does it mesh well for you, the urban city life? And for most, it depends, but there are people that's just not their way of going about their day-to-day life. If they had the choice, they would probably live somewhere else, either in a small community outside of the outskirts of the city, or maybe in a rural area that's not, so rural which is unfortunate, the stereotype that has to do with that. Because, if you break things down and, get out of yourself and, stop. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Get out of yourself and don't rely on what you see on television or, what have you on the Instagram post here. Living in a rural area, and for the most part, is very metropolitan. And it just depends on the way, what you want to take out of it, how you want to live your life here, really, is what it breaks down to. And in essence, that's what Edward Hopper's paintings are about. A lot of what people reflecting on their choices there and the consequences of that, where to go, what to do. And it is sort of like drifting and moving and wandering and wanting and searching for what's missing, what's not there. And I had a friend that told me this, and I'll wrap it up. He told me this a long while ago here. He said, think about things like this here. So a person could be in a room full of people here, surrounded by their friends and so forth, or people that they want to associate themselves with, but they're still unhappy. So really, when you think about it, it's up to you to make the decisions of meaning and purpose in your own life. And I think maybe Edward Hopper is getting at the surface of that too, because sometimes, things happen in circumstances. Specifically, it's unfortunate with the aspects of city life. More people are, involved with their own lives, and they can't be bothered by other people. And that's the way of the beast, most of the time, to where it's hard for people to be as friendly as they could be, or they just don't choose to. That's the dwelling, or, that's just the way of the world here. But also, on some cases here, life is what you make it. And I think maybe that was the essence of those paintings, too, with Edward Hopper. And I think that also translates to a lot of things that were going on with the aspects of modern art, too. Changing this disposition and the aspects of making it more prevalent with social commentary and then breaking down traditions of what is seen and what is thought of in the aspects of art and culture. All right, with all this said, I'm going to talk about some more facts here. Here we go. Okay, so this source, of course, will be provided for you in this episode. So it's entitled 10 Unique Facts About Modern Art You Should Know. So it says diverse styles and movements. All right, so there's no single definition of modern art. It comprises a vast array of style and movements. This has taken the movement from energetic colors to clean lines in mid-century modern art to abstract modern art, and each period has its own visual language. The diversity reflects the complexity and multiplicity in the contemporary world, where artists want to reflect the flavor of their time and a municipality of creative manners. All right, so freedom of expression. Modern art is known for certain features, and one of them is freedom of expression. Modern art was a response of the last century against the limitations of traditional art. It heralded in the end of the academic and traditional art and the advent of experimental and rebellious art. So artists embraced untraditional limitations, thereby allowing for a new form of artistic expression. One of the early abstract artists, Wassily Kandinsky, once said, "Each work of art is a child of its age and, in many ways, is the mother of our emotions." So, modern painters freed themselves from the limitations of representation, creating new mediums of expression. All right, so here's some thoughts that I have about this here. Now, art is all around us. It's something that you can't escape. It does delve in deep into the aspects of our society, our thoughts, and our culture at large. But also, in the aspects of that, it's quite interesting with modern art when these concepts come to mind. It was a way for people to really express themselves and not feel restrained from what was previously laid down and limited, as is said, from, traditional ways of creating art. So that's one thing, to be prevalent and held with tradition and to do things in a classical form. But it's one thing to reinvent things and give a new perspective of it. Because with that in itself, it shows the aspects of being able to adapt it to your surroundings. Because if you can't do that, then, you fail or you won't evolve. But on the other hand of this, the flip side of this, if you change too much and you don't set some sort of tradition and rich roots in history and rich roots of history, tradition, and culture, then you're lost. So it's one of those things that I think you have to find a happy medium with everything. All right, so moving on here. The birth of let me say that once again. The birth of abstraction. Modern art made abstraction the way of being abstracted of art popular, which focuses more on forms, colors, shapes than on actual depictions. Regardless of the different views of traditional art aficionados, abstract art is very powerful. Whereas it takes a long time to create certain kinds of art. It's particular for abstract art since conceptualized in aspects of abstract art involves time. So, when you get into the aspects of how do you capture time, you got to think outside of the box with that, with capturing the essence of everything. So the departure from realism invites viewers to relate to the art with the art, heart, and intellectual. So abstractions and the adaptations of prominent figures like Pablo Picasso set the foundation to explore further aspects of art. So ready-made art concepts. During the early part of the 20th century, the influential artist Marcel Duchamp coined the term ready-made. A ready-made is a simple concept, and it is an everyday object that can become art. So Duchamp, known for his iconoclastic approach to art, took this concept to the next level with his work Fountain. It's a porcelain urinal turned upside down and signed R. Mutz. This is, in fact, a pseudonym for Duchamp, which he used. It was sent to an exhibition in 1917 with a lot of debates. It undermined the concept of art itself and asked, what is art and who does define this? So performance art. Contemporary art is not limited to painting and sculpture. It extends to performance. Artists work with their bodies as a medium that pushes the limits, simulating the spectator's mind. For instance, Yoko Ono's conceptual performance and the endurance pieces are examples of the transformative power of live artistic expression. Now, Yoko Ono, wow. That's quite interesting when, say with the concept of her and the Beatles and John Lennon with, excuse me. I mean, I think it's one of those things. I'm just, being quite honest with it. So it's one of those things where I get with Yoko Ono wanting to do something experimental, and she's supposed to be this And this highly sought after, after with everything unfortunate that happened with John Lennon, contemporary artist. But at the same time, when you look back when she was a part of the Beatles, some say it's not all her to, center the focus around her. But at the same time, that's a really good example of how you have to know your place and know when it's the right time and form, and know the boundaries and limitations of something that's already set and something that's already sought after and looked and understood. And it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to venture away from it. So what do I mean by this? Even though, they're talking about Yoko Ono in the sense of the aspects of changing the concept of art in itself, is that really something that you should be doing with the concept of Beatles and the imagery and the set legend and the set mentality? Again, going back to the mentality of what people think about the Beatles. So when you obscure that and try and say that you're doing this in the namesake of art and expression, I don't know if that's really the best way to go. And that, again, gives a bad face and a bad name to the aspects of art in itself, because people start to form these opinions and these concepts about people who deem themselves as artists. Are they just convoluted people that don't know when to set boundaries? They're not self-aware, and it's one of those things to remind and think about when in the concept and the aspects of art and expression and art in its place in our culture. And I think the Beatles and Yoko Ono, and then how she's reprised, as a contemporary artist after the Beatles, that's a very interesting concept. That's something to think about here. All right, so with that said here, the influence of technology. Modern art has been heavily influenced by the immersion of technology. Artists use new tools such as photography to digital media in order to stretch the boundaries of creativity. And it's quite interesting with the aspects of early photography when they were experimenting with, panoramic views, experimenting with light and shadow, experimenting with long exposures and all of that. All right, so the digital age has birthed interactive installations, virtual reality, we get mixed media in that too, virtual reality experiences, and multimedia, as I said, artwork that have redefined the art landscape in a contemporary world. All right, so political and social commentary is no longer a shocking thing for modern art to be used as political and social commentary. Artists are involved in current affairs in a very interesting way and reflecting on the nature of human existence and condition. Artwork such as the I'm sorry for the pronunciation, I'll try my best here, Guernica by Pablo Picasso and Shepard Fairey's Hope poster show the ability of art to cause change and start debates over importance of social issues. Collaboration and interdisciplinary. Modern art is built on breaking down the barriers through collaborations across artistic disciplines. Artists collaborate across medium, blurring the distinction between visual arts, literature, music, and performance, such as interconnected approaches, and which stimulates a living art arena that continuously transcends the limits of art expression. Minimalism and conceptual art. Minimalism was developed by the artists looking for simple and depth of concepts like Donald Judd and Sol LeWitt which explored clean lines, geometrical shapes, and mental concepts where viewers had to be involved mentally. This moves away from the aspects of embellishment. So, market values and controversy. The contemporary world of art is also not free of conflict, including that which is regarded in the marketplace. So the sale of artworks are of astronomical amounts, and the commercialism of creativity leaves doubt about what is construed as genuine art. Once in relation to its own controversial arts, Damon Hirst said art is about life, and it cannot be about anything else. There's nothing else. The tension between artistic integrity and commercialism continues to shape and discuss and debates and conversations among art practitioners. All right, so this reaches the end of the Harmon Light. I'd like to know what you all think about the aspects of modern art in our culture. Feel free to reach out to me. And, as I stated in the beginning of this episode, I will have those links for you to do so. All right, so tune in, turn up, and absolutely take care. Bye-bye for now.